no matter when you have free time, you're just thinking about photo, 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 photo. And in every break I had, I was thinking about that. And yes, I think it was the best obsession I ever developed so far.
Hey, Wiki Hunters, welcome back to the Art of Photography podcast. Now, today I have someone very exciting, and you know that if you've been tuning into this podcast, our mission is to share our passion and how photography have give us hope, purpose, and happiness. To most of us, if not to all of us, photography started off as something fun, something that makes us happy. And one way to another, we got through a lot of expectation, a lot of pressure, and so forth. And for that reason, sometimes we kind of abandon photography or we get burnout from photography. So this is the whole purpose of this podcast. Now, today, I have someone very exciting to introduce to you. And he is from based in Germany, and he is Felix Inden. How you doing, Felix?
Yes, hi Stanley. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm fine. Quite smashed after the Christmas time with two kids, which is like exponentially making Christmas more tiring than ever before if you don't have kids. But I'm fine. Yes, and I'm happy to be here.
That's good. How is Christmas back in Germany? I know you in Germany. You're famous with the Glühwein and the markets and so forth.
Yeah, so in a normal year, Christmas has a huge tradition here with the Christmas markets where people from all over Europe come in big bus groups just to join the Christmas market, have a Glühwein and a Bratwurst or what do I know. But in 2020, things are a little bit different. So there was not a single Christmas market in whole Germany, I think. But of course, in Germany, there's a big Christmas tradition inside of each family, and my own family isn't the craziest about Christmas, but still we always have the Christmas tree and some decorations, and we actually also sing and stuff like that. It's like gathering the family, spending time together in this modern age that often doesn't happen so much anymore that the whole family meets up. And this year it was quite tricky with all these COVID regulation rules and stuff. So we split it up a little bit to avoid having too many people at home at the same time. And then for my wife's family, I got some quick tests to make sure we are not infected. And yeah, different Christmas than I ever had before in these 36 years of life that I've had on this planet. But yeah, I mean, it's Christmas. I'm personally not the huge Christmas fan. Like I go through it, I enjoy it, but I'm also quite happy when it's over and I can get on with my own stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good to hear. It's good to hear that you're enjoying. And I think the big thing about Christmas for me is the family part of things. I think it's a good
Yeah.
excuse to kind of come together and then meet with family and so forth. So I'm very excited to have you here. I come across your photo in Instagram, and while I was strolling, and I was just going through your photo, and I love the contrast on your photo, and just the landscapes that you managed to capture. So tell us a little bit more about yourself, maybe a little bit background on how you get into this photography world.
Yes, that's quite funny. It's so my girlfriend, who is now my wife, was into photography way earlier than myself. So my big hobbies in life have been cyclism, so road racing and mountain bike racing, which I was quite obsessive with. After that came a big phase of partying, like party hard while studying. And then I was in Paris with my wife, following her, carrying her bag and her tripod, and she was taking pictures. And I thought it would be okay to stop taking pictures after 2 or 3 hours. But no, she went on the whole day. And at some point, I asked her if I can have her old backup camera and started taking pictures myself and realized I found that quite enjoyable. So we spent the next 3 days shooting together. And then I was already hooked to photography and spent all my free time reading about photography and then also going out to shoot mostly cityscapes as I didn't afford to go to some exotic location. And the evenings I stopped going to parties and sat down at home at the computer learning to edit landscape and cityscape pictures. And then things kind of evolved like the normal way. I started using social media and started communicating with a lot of people who had the same passion like we are doing right now. And from there, things just slowly kept evolving somehow. Yeah.
Awesome. So what really hooked you into photography? Like, what makes you really love it?
So from that moment on, I first maybe I have to tell you and everybody that I was really bad in arts. So in school, I never had good grades in arts, and I never enjoyed it because whenever I tried it drawing something, I just instantly saw how bad I am at it. So I told myself I don't have an artsy creativity in me. I always had some writing, interest in writing, and I read a lot of books, like huge amount of books. Like I was hiding under my bed when my parents told me to go sleep. I was hiding there with a with a flashlight and kept on reading. Um, and this moment where I picked up the camera from my wife, I realized that I actually was enjoying something that you can at least call art in some way. Like I think people can argue for years if photography is art or it isn't. For me, it is. This was like the moment where I felt I'm not totally bad at picturing two-dimensional or three-dimensional scenes into a two-dimensional image. And through photography, I even learned how to think three-dimensionally much more than I was able before. So also in physics, I was bad in school in physics, and now I deeply regret it because I think through photography, I learned how interesting all these topics actually are. Yeah. So I don't know if that answers your question
Yeah,
to
that's really
me.
cool. Yeah, so
But
like it's really interesting how you like that. I actually never heard that kind of um how you fall in love with photography. That's really interesting. And I think a lot of people out there kind of think and look at a lot of these photos, these beautiful photos. They kind of think they started off and then they kind of gave up because they feel like, just like yourself, they feel like they don't have that art side of themselves, and they feel like they cannot do this. So even though they enjoy it, they quickly give it up. So that is really good to hear that from you, who already basically made it in the photography world, saying that you weren't very good in photography, and then here you are. So that's amazing. um
yeah, it's was around 10 years ago that I found this interest, and then I quickly developed that obsession that you need to really get into something. It's when you feel that no matter when you have free time, you're just thinking about photo, 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 photo. And in every break I had, I was thinking about that. And yes, I think it was the best obsession I ever developed so far. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, that's one way to put it. Yeah. So, what sort of feeling do you get when you can, like, when you capture this? You kind of give us a little bit of background on the different aspect of your life and how it's so contrast to to photography, and how it kind of connects back. But tell us a little bit more about the feeling that you get when when you're able to capture some of these images and present it in a way that is wow, basically.
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think the thing that will probably you've heard that from other photographers, but the experience for me comes first. So I'm not so much about getting that picture, but about going through living that moment in which I'm also taking that picture. So I was always driven by like natural energy, like storms, rough weather, rough landscapes, just places where I feel so different than sitting at a cozy home, enjoying the wind, getting blasted with hail. These are those moments that often push my creativity. When I have to force myself to go through something that's not comfortable, that's when I feel the most creative. Now, if you look close to my Instagram, you will see that I have quite a big amount of also typical iconic shots for which I didn't have to go through any heavy things. I just went there with a photo tour that I was guiding and took that picture again that 100,000 people take. So it's a topic for itself. But when I talk about these experiences, I talk about being out there alone, on my own, or with a friend or two at maximum, and then going out in moments where where maybe before you go out, you look at the weather and think we should just skip it and stay home. Those are mostly the sessions where my favorite images take part. If you endure the elements, basically. And that leads to what you were telling about the images that I sometimes show that are quite punchy or contrasty. Of course, I'm also a passionate post producer or Photoshop user, but most of that really comes from the circumstances, from the weather while shooting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's I totally agree. I think some of my best photos are, or my favorite photos are the one that are have a lot of memories in it. So I think the photo is kind of just like a like an award, or like, you know, like a piece of memento that you can remember that experience through. So um,
Yeah. And as soon as you look at it, even after 5 years, you will be in that moment. You just cannot forget it. It triggers all the memories. And that's also what I really love about photography.
yeah,
Now,
that's true.
I liked that about photography too when I was just a tourist taking crappy tourist shots 20 years ago in South America. I still look at these images and remember everything like it was yesterday. But of course, I curse myself for not having taken a good image, a working landscape photograph, so to say.
So do you find that you want to go back to a lot of those places that you've been before you're into photography and wanting to take
Whoa,
retake them all, or
definitely, definitely. I actually wanted to do some of that this year, but
uh-huh.
then something happened and I had to cancel those trips. Yeah. So I lived in Chile with my parents from my 10th to my 16th year of age. So I visited insanely nice places in Chile, Argentina, Peru, Bolivia, all around. So there's a huge amount of super photogenic places that I can remember from my childhood or from my youth where I have to return to take pictures. Not Torres del Paine or El Chaltén that everybody knows with the Fitzroy, the Cuernos del Paine, all these iconic mountains, but there's amazing landscapes that just require you to go to areas that few people know about. And I would totally love to go there and to go there as a landscape photographer and try to put my spin on these places that not so many people know about. Yeah, but life isn't that easy. So now I'm a father of two kids and have to sustain the family somehow too. So it's all I cannot just say I'm gonna go there for 3 or 4 months and return home once I have images that make me happy. So I always have to consider closely how I spend my time when I go to some faraway place. Normally, I don't go longer than 2.5-ish weeks, maybe maximum 3. And for some of these places, you would normally need an open end trip where you just go and then stay there for maybe 3 to 4 months. It can happen that you're done after 2 weeks, but normally it will take quite some time to arrange everything. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. It sounds like fun though. I think when I got into photography from traveling, so I used to travel, and what I used to do back then is just tick off places, right? I just
Yeah.
go to Tower, take photo, go home, go next one, take photo, go home, and that's what I found with photography. I found actually to slow things down and actually go deeper. So that's really cool that you want to go to places that is no that everyone knows, and actually go to the more unbeaten path, and a unique kind of perspective.
Yes, that's kind it's a little bit like an interior thing because the last 2 to 3 years I've spent them mostly guiding people at very famous places, which is always great fun. And you can make sure that everybody gets some amazing shots, which is maybe your job during one of these tours. But from my personal point of view as an artist, maybe I can say that this didn't exactly make my images better. So I have a huge collection of images that are successfully usable in social media because, as you might know, the popular stuff is what gets you the views and everything. But from the creative point of view, it's not what will bring you forward if you do it for years and years. So I am that's my secret plan is to break that up a little bit. For I listened to your podcast with Paul Ziska. He's like extremely inspiring to me. He's just such a good guy, and he has like this unique vision on his own photography. And I think that's also in part because he doesn't spend too much time guiding these photo tours at two famous places.
Yeah, it's I think it's funny because most of the guests that I've talked to, I think I would say all of the guests that I've talked to have that very have the same kind of take on it, about creating something one that is meaningful to ourselves.
Yeah,
So I see that a lot of your photo, or you have the love for ice and the winter scene as well. um,
definitely. Yeah.
yeah. So what brings that love? Like, why the winter? Why this cold, harsh places?
I don't know, maybe because in the places where I spent most of my life, I don't have any real winter. It's like here today, it's the end of December. Without climate change, we would have snow outside, cold weather. Now we have a big storm going on outside, so it's really rough weather, but it's still plus 5 degrees and it's just rain, rain, rain. And I miss these real winter environments. I don't know why, but they kick my creativity off. And from the beginning of my landscape photography, the first time I saw the Northern Lights also gave me a big inspiration boost. That's something I constantly miss here too. So I don't know. I find it incredibly photogenic to have snow that reflects the light and the low standing sun or even the moonlight, and then ice features as a foreground. It's just quite cool. So when I look at Paul's images, I'm always like, think that's heaven in Canada with all the crazy icy stuff he has around there, or you too, basically.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy out here, and yeah, it's you're right. It is definitely like out of the world. A lot. I mean, I'm from Australia, and a lot of the stuff I see here, I just like I couldn't believe it's real. I thought it was just like, what is this thing is real? It's like people actually skate on the lake. It's like I thought that's how people like drown and stuff. So, well, yeah, that's funny how different things are. But that's really cool.
And
How is your
how do you feel as an Australian in Canada in this very cold landscape?
Well, it's really interesting. I like the cold better than the hot. Like honestly, like when I'm back home, I think I have really high metabolism. So like when I'm back home, even if I don't do anything because it's so humid and hot, I would just like start sweating, and I really hate that.
Yeah.
And I actually have allergic reaction to the sweat. It's so if I would need to like shower twice a day, if not more. to kind of get that like sweat off my body, or otherwise I start getting like this reaction on my skin. And
Yeah.
it's funny because like I actually could withstand the cold a lot better than most people, even those people that have been living here in Canada or in Europe where they get the four seasons. I was traveling with three people from Germany and one people from France in Australia, and the desert get a little bit cold. Obviously, not as cold as here, but I'll be out on a short and like on a t-shirt, and they'll be like bundling up, and it's like, what are you doing? It's like, I don't know, it's okay. So it's
Yeah,
actually okay. Yeah.
it's fun to hear because you clearly come from a quite hot place and
Yeah.
you live now at a quite cold place. But to summarize this little bit, I just love seasons. I love to see how seasons change. And here where I live, so of course we have places with harsh winter in Germany too, but those are in the mountains, not here in the river deltas. So here I have a nice spring with flowers. So you go out and you realize, okay, it's spring. Then you go out in summer and it will be hot and quite humid. Also, you realize it's summer and autumn looks beautiful with all the leaves and foggy weather and everything. But the winter, you just go out and think, so this is no winter, this is just gray weather, very little sunlight and a lot of rain. It's just boring. So that's why I love to escape to the north of Europe, especially Norway, during wintertime. Yes.
Yeah, no, that's very true actually. Like I mean, those places are so beautiful, isn't it? Not only the snow, but also the landscape. So it's definitely been on my bucket list as well. Um, where do you get your inspiration for? Is that like is there anyone that you kind of that really inspire you to get some of this photo, or to basically drive your creativity in photography as an art?
Yes, that there's a bazillion of people that keep inspiring me, some through their imagery, some through their personality, some through that spirit or the combination of it all. But I also get inspired by movies quite a lot, or series. It's kind of cliche, but for example, Game of Thrones or Vikings, all these series, I think just their directors of photography maybe have a similar way of thinking that I have, or at least they have a similar style of things they like. So whenever I watch those series in TV, I instantly feel inspired again. And then, especially Game of Thrones, I keep watching how they set the light on set. And then you can try to replicate that in real life, like look for situations where the sun comes from a certain angle and stuff like that. But one of my biggest inspirations has been Stian Klo, Klo. He's a friend from Norway who lives very close to Lofoten, and we started photography. I think we started at the same time, but then I could watch him skyrocket very quickly with his photography because he was living so close to all these so photogenic places where you can, as a beginner, it's gold if you have a super photogenic place around, because no matter what you want to learn, you will have the prime locations to do that. So I didn't have that. I was shooting mostly in my city or close to the city. So that allowed me to learn all the techniques that I wanted to learn and to understand how depth works in an image. You don't need an epic peak in the background and a frozen lake in the foreground. You can learn that at the plaza of your local town. So you put something in the foreground, even if it's just a statue, or I don't know, even a brick wall would work to learn how the yeah, how the dynamic of the image changes. But I think having this guy Stian posting all his images inspired me to keep on going myself too. And from there on, I think it's important to just surround yourself with people that inspire you. It's difficult to put it into words, to say this inspires me. It's just more like a mindset. And also, I know your podcast talks about these things more than others. So I've also been demotivated when I couldn't travel, and I've been demotivated when I see my images all look the same. But then I think photography has the power of make you break out from all those thoughts if you allow it. And yeah, so some of the best inspiration settings for me is just going out, no matter if with a camera or without. Go out of your the place where you live and walk around for 1 or 2 hours, and I bet there will be some inspiring thoughts coming all by themselves.
That's awesome. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think that's it's really good for a lot of the listeners out there to hear that. And I think you're right. I think most a lot of people are really having a hard time sometimes with all the stuff that's going on, and it feels like their creativity is gone, but it's still there. So I think that's a really good advice to just go out there and then just don't set any expectation for yourself. Just go out there and see what you get. Yeah, that's very cool. Like so you're talking about I kind of lost my train of thought there. It's just like so in tune with what you say there. It's so cool. Yeah. So what would be some of your most favorite moment in photography? Like, is something that like probably until this day you go like, yeah, that was probably one of the coolest moment of experience type of thing.
Hmm. Because it's there's like many like that,
Uh-huh.
but let me think. So I think one of the really coolest moments was when I saw my first aurora borealis or the northern lights for the first time. I i thought, wow, this looks insane, I need to take pictures of this. And then I realized I wasn't able to. So the pictures I was taking were crap. They didn't look like the way I wanted them to look. That's because I had no idea about how to shoot the northern lights and everything like that. So I just stopped taking pictures and enjoyed those lights and returned a year later with a much bigger skill set. I knew how to approach that. And then I took pictures that I saw on the back of my screen, the camera screen, and I was like, that's how it should look like. That was like the feeling of accomplishment for myself, was a big motivation. And that's one of those moments. Then I also had some troublesome hikes where I doubted I would even reach the point that I wanted. When I was starting to hike, I thought this will never work. And then if you make it through, and if you take a picture that you really love yourself, and I don't love many of my shots, I gotta say it. I'm super critical, super nitpicky with my own work. And those few images that I really like myself often have like some form of challenge that I had to go through. And those are then also my favorite moments. But I think it was Elia Locardi who said it, like, what is your favorite moment in photography? The next one I'm gonna have. So I don't want to think too much about the past. I just hope to get more nice moments through photography as soon as possible, when it's possible again.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think that's very true. I think like maybe looking forward is probably um, one of the best thing we can do, especially when we kind of in this situation and you kind of lose motivation. I think looking forward, being having that hope is really really important. I remember now what I was gonna ask you. You were talking about your friend in Norway and how he he's in a prime location or photography, and I mean, I kind of live where like the jewel of Canada, Mount
Yeah.
Green at the moment, right? And what I find is that I think sometimes because it's so beautiful, we get quite lazy because it doesn't matter where you shoot. It's almost impossible to take a photo that is horrible, right? It's almost some
Yeah.
it's kind of always kind of good. Um, do you think what are your thoughts on this in terms of improving your photography? Will it actually help you to be in a prime location because there is a lot of beautiful thing around it, or will it actually work the other way because you kind of just start pointing and shooting at everything because it's just so beautiful, right?
Yeah, I think it's. Let me think. Um, it's maybe two sides of a medal with this reply. So in the beginning, as a beginner, it definitely will help. That's my opinion, because what helps you in the beginning is satisfaction and the feeling of success for yourself. And if you're a beginner, that success will be to take a picture that you really like. And as we are super extroverted, also, no, that was wrong. So I'm not extroverted, but the way we show our images to the whole world is some form of weird extrovertism. Um, so if you are beginning with photography and you have a cool shot to show your friends every few days, you will be more motivated to get more of those pictures than somebody who has to wait for 2 years until he can go to some of those places where he maybe is dreaming of going. So, but there will be coming the point where you maybe where this being at a spectacular place will not be doing you any service anymore, because then it goes about what is photography giving you? Is the kick still coming? Like, are you still excited about photography? If you're not, you can be, I don't know, you can live in Iceland and still get bored by landscape photography. But if you still have that passion and it gets stronger and stronger and stronger, then I think you will profit from such a place because it will keep you going. Now, there's a huge amount of people who don't live at such places and they develop over the years and get very good at photography. It's not needed to live at such a place to be a good photographer. Absolutely not. But I think it can be beneficial, yes.
Oh, yeah, I
I mean,
think
you surely also know many people who start photography, they develop a really nice style, and suddenly they stop. Yep. The name disappears from your online list of people whose work you keep seeing. And that's maybe because they got bored of photography and picked up another hobby. But yeah, I don't know. When I go out here into my local forests, I'm also get very inspired, and the challenge to get a picture that satisfies me is much higher than in Lofoten Islands, where you can put your camera wherever you want and take a picture that will be at least like a 3 out of 10. You can't go lower because the landscape is so beautiful.
yeah, that's very true. Do you find that when you do that, do you find that when you go on your local forest where it's more challenging to grab a photo that satisfy you, but when you actually get it, do you find it to be more fulfilling compared to those photos that are arguably
Yes.
easier to get, right?
Yeah, I think so too. I think so, definitely. Also because um, to maybe also in your place, like I've never been there, but I guess to get unique pictures, you need to do quite some hiking, climbing, or you need to be super lucky with the conditions at an easy place. Like, this is how you can set yourself apart from other people. It's either getting super unique conditions at the easy places, or putting in a lot of effort to going far away from the crowds and in a place that's so mountainous, if that's an English word. Like, if you have so many mountains like where you live, you will have to go hiking and climbing quite a lot to get away from the crowds, I guess. So for me here, I tried finding other landscape photographers in this area, but I haven't found any at the moment. So if I find a nice tree that I like, the chance is very high that it's not been taken photographed ever before. And this is also somehow it's satisfying too, to know that I'm taking a picture that maybe is unique to myself. Like those pictures never create much interest online, but it's more about your inner self and what motivates your. So these pictures are generally the ones that I print for myself or that I give as a gift to my mom or whatever, because she's from the same area. And then if you show these images to people that also live in the same area as you, they will ask you, "Oh, where's that? Where's that?" And you tell, "That's where you walk every day." But you don't see it like I see it when the light is right.
Yeah, that's great to share, for you to share that. I think as as a human being, it's very natural for us to take things for granted that are easy to get for us, and and that's why one of my mission when I first kind of left my full-time job for photography was to actually explore my own backyard, which was Indonesia and Australia. I actually drove around the continent of Australia, which was pretty cool. But yeah, that's really cool intake on that. And I think the listeners out there should take that as an inspiration. Where even if you're in a place where you think it's not a very good place to put that as a question mark, because I feel like everywhere you go, there's always a good place to take photos. Just what type of photography you're gonna get. So that kind of brings me a question: why landscape photography? You kind of start in Europe, which has a really strong kind of urban and as well as a street photography environment.
Yeah.
How do you actually fall in love with landscape?
This was funny. I went to Norway the first time with my wife before I even had this moment in Paris that I told you about. So, and with my parents, I traveled to incredibly beautiful places in South America. So I had seen a fair amount of beautiful places in nature before I was interested in photography. And then when I realized that photography is super fun, instantly I wanted to go to these places in nature and take pictures of them. Like as I've been always passionate for nature and for landscapes, it just clicked together very nicely. And I also went to Dubai last year to shoot cityscapes, and with some email trickery and some, I don't know, some moves I made, I got to some pretty cool rooftops that are not accessible, and I have all these images and I look at them and I don't edit them. Like they don't give me that adrenaline kick, but when I look at the landscape images, that's what kicks and drives my inspiration. So it comes down to personal likes. I definitely learned almost everything I know from the basics of photography while shooting cityscapes and street. But then when I was able to afford to go to beautiful nature with the purpose of photography, that is more expensive than going to some place to chill out, because you will need a rental car and this and that, and well, you know all that stuff. But nature and photography was what clicked for me, and this quite early. So I knew I don't want to spend time shooting portraits. I don't want to walk around the city and take street candids or how it's called. I just want to go somewhere nice, in my preference, a rough and dramatic landscape, and take pictures there.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that's probably like not many people wanted to do that, isn't it? No, most people wanted to go out during a nice blue sky instead of this rough condition that's blowing you. Try to stand and try to survive. Yeah, that's amazing. So going back to what you kind of started off in the beginning, what are your thoughts in photography? Do you think it's an art, or do you think it's not, and why?
I think it's both art and no art. So because obviously photography is a medium, And a camera is a tool that you can use for many things. You can take your camera and take a picture of a contract, and then you pretty much scanned the contract. I wouldn't call that art. And then there comes the moment where you, as an artist, walk out with your camera and take pictures. Not every picture will be what people define as art, but I think the activity that you are doing with your camera is still something artsy. It just depends what you create in the end. Like, if you shoot commercial architecture that I've done, I wouldn't call that artsy. But if you look the work of some of the most popular architecture photographers worldwide, they most likely have something artsy in their architectural photography, because that sets them apart from the rest, and that's why they became so popular. Like, at the moment, I don't have any name present, but there's certainly some that take artsy architecture photography commercially. Now, there are nature photographers that are generally more artsy than we typical landscape photographers. We often, or I also guilty of this, I often follow some form of formula that leads me to an effective picture. I don't know if following a formula is really artsy anymore. It's just so many, I just can never decide. So for me, it's a form of art. Not every picture that I take is art. Definitely not. But some of them are. So I can never decide what to think about this. I don't know. For me personally, it doesn't really matter too. I mean, I will let others decide if they see me as an artist or not. Um, yes, it's weird to think about it, because of course it's so easy to reproduce everything that we do, and a painter is certainly more perceivable as art than a photographer. But I know so many people that I admire that are super artsy in their photography, and those are what inspire me nowadays. So I hope to get to a point where people look at my stuff and think that's art. I would be happy then.
Cool. So, well, just wrapping up to the hour mark here. One last question that I usually ask all my guests. What can you share with the listener? One advice that you think is very important to other photographer or artists in photography out there, on either how to start or how to get inspired in photography, or even how to master photography. It's what are your best advice that you have learned throughout your career in photography that you feel like other photographers should know?
Yeah, so I think in the beginning, let's make one for beginner and one for more advanced. As a beginner, you should just listen to your inner voice and don't listen to social media. Don't let social media be your main advisor, because this can trigger you the wrong way to pursue a happy life as a photographer. You know what I'm talking about? Like, there's so many things that can happen once you focus too much on social media. And if you do that because you have to promote your products to make a living, that's fine, it's your job. But if you're just starting out as a hobby amateur photographer, forget about that and listen to yourself. You will notice what inspires you, and you will know what was right and what was wrong. You don't need to count the likes that your picture got to make your decision for a way to pursue. That's one point. And the next one would be just practice. So there's a good um, portrait photographer and editor, Joel Grimes. And I think I saw him many years ago on Photokina, and he was saying on stage, hard work will outperform talent every single day of the week. And I don't know if I agree 100%, but 99.9 I agree. If you want to learn and improve, you need to do things. You can only consume tutorials and read books for a certain part, but that will not make you improve if you don't grab your camera, go out somewhere and try practice photography. Um, Also, I know quite a big amount of people sit at home thinking, yeah, but I cannot go to place X or place Y, so I cannot advance. Wrong way of thinking. No matter where you live, if you have a camera, you will profit from just going out. And even if the pictures are taken on a junkyard, you can use that junkyard to learn the basics of photography. And once you make it to one of those places that you want to take pictures of, you will be prepared and take much better pictures than if you spent the last year just dreaming about it without touching the camera.
Awesome. Thanks a lot for the advice. I hope the listeners out there kind of find this inspiring, because there's some good advice there. Going back to kind of what you say around um, the social media, I think the social media have a lot of responsibility to a lot of the burnouts out there, and I kind of feel that myself as
Definitely.
well. I feel like you kind of have that expectation, right? And that you have to create that photo, and you're no longer taking photo for yourself, and that kind of take away the fun of photography. You say that to your a lot earlier today. The photo that you're most proud of are the photo that actually mean something to you. So
Exactly.
that's a really good advice to share. And I think going back to what you were saying earlier as well, I just want to point out that what you say about your friend in Norway and how we compare these two. Is it good or bad to be in a place that are more photogenic? Is that just go out there and find a little bit of result. I think that's going back to what you say, it's a really good way to get that momentum in your photography. So that is definitely one thing that you should consider and think about if you just started. So perfect. That's amazing. Thanks a lot for sharing that, Felix. And yeah, look, it's been fun, and I had a lot of fun listening to you. It's been very inspiring as well to hear some of your perspective and your point of view. Um, for the listeners out there who want to hear more about you and also want to see more of your photos, your beautiful landscapes and all that stuff, what is the best way to find you and connect with you?
Yes, so I'm Felix Inden. Inden is my aftername. If you Google that, you'll find all my homepage, felicinden.com, or IG, Instagram /FelixInden. So that way you can find everything about me. And I encourage, or I would like it if you check out my homepage. There will be a magic little pop-up coming telling you to subscribe to my newsletter. And this is something quite new to me. So I haven't been working much on a newsletter subscription list, but I started now, and I'm just finishing my own little ebook about how to improve your landscape photography that you'll get if you subscribe to my newsletter. I know this is done by many, but I put a lot of thought into this little ebook, and just go check it out or have a look at my pictures on Instagram. You can also DM me. I go through every message that I get and enjoy communicating with people. Then I also hope that my English was understandable in this podcast, like because I'm a German, I guess I have some form of accent in there. But yeah, I enjoyed to be here to talk with you, Stanley, and was really good.
Ah, fantastic. Yeah, we'll put the link on the description below. So if you're interested to subscribe, go to the homepage. But also, Felix is really good in social media at socializing, I suppose, socializing in social media. Yeah, he's quite enjoyable to follow and to learn from. So highly encourage you to
Thank
check
you.
out his Instagram and Facebook. Yeah, so well, thanks a lot, Felix, for your time, and thanks a lot for setting aside some of your time, especially with the busy kids and the holiday season. But yeah, look, Wiki Hunters, thank you very much for tuning in, and it's been very, yeah, it's been a lot of fun talking to Felix here. And let us know in the comment below what are some of the best, insights that Felix have shared with us. And for those of you who join us in YouTube, don't forget to subscribe. You got the subscribe button down here, and then hit that notification button so that you get notified next time I upload the photo. But hopefully you guys have the rest of 2020, and I mean we are literally, yeah, we're recording at the last week of 2020. So I will see you guys in 2021. Well, Felix, thank you very much for being here, and thank you very much for all of your insights, as well as your wisdom, and hopefully you have the rest, a good rest of 2020, and an amazing 2021.
Yeah, Stanley, thanks again for having me, and I wish you and everybody who listens this a happy new year. Let's just all sit tight. We're gonna see each other on the flip side someday, and stay safe, everyone. And
Stay
yeah.
safe, everyone, and I'll see you guys next week. I mean, next year.